The United States Surgeon General declared it officially, "We are living through a loneliness epidemic." 1 in 4 adults say they feel completely disconnected from the people around them, adrift, invisible, alone. But you're the one who walked away on purpose. You picked up your phone, saw a name you recognized, and made a conscious decision. Not today, not anymore. And here's the part that confuses everyone around you. You don't feel lonely. You don't feel like something is missing. If anything, you feel more like yourself than you have in years. So how did you become someone who leaves and never looks back? You used to be the one who stated, "Didn't start here." There was an earlier version of you, the dependable one. Friend who answered calls at 2 in the morning without hesitation. The family member who kept every difficult relationship stitched together through sheer effort. The partner who absorbed everyone else's emotional weight. Without complaint, you were the person people dialed when their lives were falling apart. And every single time you showed up, you sat through the same circular conversations, offered the same thoughtful advice, watched it get ignored, and then watched them come back, ready to have the exact same conversation again. Until one day, without much planning, you just didn't pick up, and instead of chaos, there was quiet. A kind of quiet you hadn't felt in a very long time. That moment wasn't a failure. It wasn't you giving up. Your mind and body were simply doing exactly what they were built to do. Studying how the human nervous system responds to social environments have identified something important. Our bodies operate in different modes depending on what we've experienced. When a person has been repeatedly drained, when the emotional scales have been consistently tipped against them, the nervous system doesn't wait for a conscious decision. It acts on its own. It pulls you out of open, connected engagement and moves you towards something closer to conservation mode. Withdrawal, stillness, self-preservation. This isn't dysfunction. This is your body treating your energy as the limited, valuable resource it actually is, and responding accordingly. But the deeper question is this: where did your nervous system first learn that closeness carried risk? It started earlier than you think for a lot of people. The answer reaches further back than feels comfortable to acknowledge. Maybe you grew up reading the emotional temperature of a room before you were old enough to fully understand what you were sensing, watching a parent's face when they came through the door, learning that one person's mood had the power to shift the entire atmosphere of your home in an instant. Researchers studying family emotional dynamics have described what happens to children who grow up in that kind of unpredictability. When a child learns early that closeness and instability are permanently paired, that love tends to arrive alongside tension. They adapt. They become skilled at detecting subtle shifts in atmosphere before anyone speaks. They learn that the safest, most controllable space is often a solitary one, and that blueprint, drawn in childhood for survival, doesn't disappear when you become an adult. It shows up every time someone gets close enough to matter. Every time the old warning signals start firing. That's not a character flaw. It's an old coping strategy that kept you safe when you genuinely needed it. But there's a difference worth knowing. Here's where honesty matters, because not every form of pulling away is the same thing. The research is clear that prolonged isolation carries real physical consequences, measurably increased risk of serious health conditions, not just emotional ones. The body keeps score in very concrete ways. But here's what those statistics leave out. Being surrounded by the wrong people carries its own significant costs. Chronic emotional drain, constant hypervigilance, relationships that take without giving. Those aren't neutral. They cause damage too. So the real question isn't whether distance is good or bad. It's what kind of distance you're creating and why. A wall keeps everyone out, the harmful and the nourishing alike. It's built from fear and operates without discrimination. A boundary is different. It's built from self-knowledge. It's selective. It makes distinctions. If you stepped back from someone and felt immediate relief, that's information. If the absence of someone brought you genuine peace rather than grief, that's not isolation. That's your inner compass pointing you towards something true. The question worth sitting with isn't whether to let people in. It's which people actually deserve a place in your peace. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably already know exactly who they are. You're not paranoid. your perceptive hears something worth understanding about people who have learned to cut ties. It's almost never random. You notice patterns. You spotted the friend who only reaches out when they need something. You clocked that within the first few months. You identified the family member whose praise always comes wrapped in a condition. You recognized the person who floods you with warmth and then vanishes. Long before the full cycle ran its course, research into how early emotional stress shapes the brain has found that people with these kinds of formative experiences often develop a significantly heightened ability to read social situations. The parts of the brain responsible for detecting subtle interpersonal signals work at a higher level of engagement in people with this background. You're not too sensitive. You're not seeing things that aren't there. You're processing social information at a depth and speed that most people simply don't operate at. What feels like instinct is actually thousands of hours of pattern recognition, refined over years, now running quietly in the background. When that system tells you someone is going to cost you more than they give, you've learned to take that seriously. There's a better word for what you're living. That world tends to reach for certain words. When describing people like you, isolated, withdrawn, closed off, cold, all of those words carry an assumption that something is missing, that you are an incomplete version of a person who should be seeking more connection. But there's another word that fits far better: solitude. Loneliness is wanting connection and not having it. Solitude is choosing stillness and finding it genuinely satisfying. You're not sitting in your space wishing someone would reach out. You're finally, for the first time in a long time, able to hear your own thoughts. The quiet of your phone isn't rejection, it's relief. People who don't understand your choices will say you're avoiding something that you're running away from. Life. But that framing has it backwards. You're not running from anything. You're moving deliberately toward something. Toward.com, toward clarity. Toward a version of yourself that only becomes visible when the noise settles down. Isolation. That's sanctuary. And you built it yourself. There is nothing wrong with you. You found this and you've been quietly wondering whether something about you is broken. I want to say this as directly as possible. You are not cold. You are not incapable of connection. You are not someone who stopped caring. You are someone who learned, through real experience, that access to your energy is something worth protecting. And rather than letting that lesson harden you into bitterness, you made a different choice. You decided to build a life that feels steady instead of chaotic, gentle instead of exhausting. That is not a small thing. That is quietly one of the most courageous decisions a person can make. One of the longest-running studies on human happiness ever conducted, following people across more than 7 decades, arrived at a straightforward conclusion. What determines a fulfilling life isn't the number of relationships you maintain, it's the quality of the ones you choose to keep. So if your circle is small, if it fits in one hand but the people inside it actually see you, actually show up, actually add to your life rather than subtract from it, you're not doing something wrong, you're doing it exactly right. If this felt like something you needed to hear, leave a comment. Protect your peace.